it's Laura here with a simple spring-themed slider card tutorial for you today. When we pull on the slider panel, two new images and a secondary sentiment appear. They are from the super cute MSTN Sending Sunshine and Smiles stamp set. I've already adhered some of the speech bubble dies from the MSTN Say Anything Dynamics and the largest die from the A2 Stitch Rectangle Stack Set 1 Dynamics to an A2 piece of smooth white cardstock covered with a piece of patterned paper from the Hip Hip Yay paper pad. And instead of speech bubbles, you could use circles or other open shapes. Just make sure that you leave enough room for the hidden images. After running all of this through your die cutting machine, you can cut a notch in the lower edge either with a 1-inch circle die or a punch. My panel measures 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and we will need a second same-sized panel in white to cover some of the holes. My slider panel is slightly smaller. It measures 3 3/4 by 5 inches. I just used the second largest die from the Stitched Rectangle Stack Set 1 Dynamics, but you can absolutely cut it with a paper trimmer if you don't have this. Let's temporarily adhere the two panels with tape and trace the inside of the parts that we are going to cut out. And I did the cutting out part off camera with the help of a craft knife and a pair of scissors. It doesn't have to be perfect, just make the holes slightly bigger than the traced parts so that we won't see any ugly edges through the speech bubbles. Let's check it out before we move on. It looks good. So now we can grab our slider panel and temporarily adhere it to the back of our main panel. I'm centering it horizontally but keeping the lower edges leveled or flush. It's important to lightly trace the inside of our speech bubbles onto the slider panel. You'll see why in a moment. For my first images, I chose the cute Ladybug and two small flowers and stamped them with extreme black hybrid ink. Now would also be the perfect moment to stamp an arrow or the word pull from the interactive labels set. Or you could just use a triangle enamel like I did. Okay, peel off the tape and move the slider panel downwards to its final position where we can't see the three images that we just stamped. The lower edge barely covers the little flower in the left speech bubble. It would have been best to use just the ones in the center. We don't have to worry about the ladybug's legs because those will be covered by the speech bubble in the right-hand corner. Now let's use some tape to keep that panel in place and stamp the second set of images and sentiment. We're ready to adhere the two same-sized panels together, and I'm just going to use liquid glue and press down firmly, even with a bone folder if needed. After coloring the images off camera, I'm ready to assemble the card. I've attached my two panels with tape on the front, and here I'm tracing around the slider panel so that I know where to add strips of foam tape. But first, let's add a strip of cellophane or packaging plastic to it. This one is 3.5 inches wide and 3 inches long, although we'll trim it later on. It already has a strip of adhesive on it, so I'm just gonna attach it to the edge of my panel. There we go. The strips of dimensional adhesive need to be really skinny, 3/8 and 3/16 of an inches wide, or 1 centimeter and 1/2 centimeter. And since we don't need much thickness, I used my paper trimmer to cut some strips of smooth white cardstock backed with score tape. I'm just going to stack 2 of each with liquid glue, which will give us the perfect height. After adding the strips to the 3 sides, we can carefully peel off the tape and slide the panel into its final position. My card is so tight at the moment that I don't need to keep the slider panel in place with tape, so I'll just add a strip of score tape to the back, to the upper edge of it, peel off the backing and smoothen the cellophane over it. There. Let's try it out before we get rid of the overlapping plastic. I'm carefully slicing through it with the blades of my scissors. there. And here I am adhering my panel to a card base that measures 8 3/4, scored at 4 3/8 by 5 5/8. You could of course choose an A2 panel, but I like the slightly wider margin. I added the final touches off camera, like the cute bee from the honeybee set and the letters from the connected alphabet dynamics. I also added some matching enamel dots. That's it for today. Don't forget to check out the description box for all of the information. Have a great day. See you next time. Bye bye. Hasta la próxima.